Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, wherever you are out there in the world, and welcome to another episode of the Buddhist Biohacker. My name is Lisa Gunshore. I am your host, as always, in this wild ride we've been on this year in 2020. Schumann resonance spiked this morning up into the 40s, so we definitely have a lot of vibrational shifting happening with the planet right now, which is no surprise. We just came off of October 13th, and we're actually headed into a super new moon. So we have a lot of cool stuff going on this week to drive us crazy astrologically. Mercury retrograde just started too, so yay for all of us. So that's that. And for all of you who are joining in the live stream, as always, you can use your comments box to share your stories, ask your questions, share your comments. We welcome that. If you're listening later on audio, we are now on iListen, we are on Alexa, we are on Google Play, we are on Spotify, we are on iHeartRadio, we are on Podbean. So if you're listening later, you can join us on our mewe forum, mewe, mewe.com. Mewe has privacy laws for all of the people who are patrons of that platform. So it's private, safe social media. We have a Buddhist Biohacker Forum, and you can join in with us and all the presenters, facilitators, and guests to continue the conversation. So with all that out of the way, I am really excited and honored to have these guests with us today. They are known as 2-1 Photography, but it is also known as Casey and Vanessa. And I'm so excited to have you on. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Oh, I'm so excited. And for all of you guys out there, to give context, these lovely ladies are responsible for all of my photos across social media and all of the websites, all 4 of the websites. Yes, Vanessa did such a great job. And so I'm super happy to have you guys here, and I'm excited about the topic today. So I want to start out while folks are joining in here and just have you guys share a little bit about each of you, like who you are and what 2-1 Photography is all about. And then we can kind of dive in deeper.
Yeah. So Vanessa and I are actually sister-in-laws. So that's something that's really exciting. And we've been really, really great friends for a long time. So it's been really great to be able to do this together. But I'm Casey. I started 2-1 almost 11 years ago. And I guess my goal when I started it was just to kind of change my career from what I was doing. I wasn't into it. And we'll get into all of this to be more in flow with kind of how my intuition felt with wanting to be creative and all of that. And so I grew up in Boulder, went to Boulder High, UNC in Greeley, and then kind of moved down to Denver and started doing photography. So that's kind of a short version of my life. I got married last summer to her brother. And yeah. You go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Vanessa Miranda. So I joined 2-1 Photography in 2016, and again, we'll go a little bit deeper into what that transition was like. But same kind of thing. I was kind of hitting the 9-to-5 grind for a long time, and wanted to kind of make a different move to find that inner voice and find. I felt like something was not quite where I needed to be, and so. Casey and I started the conversation and started shooting with her. And then that just started to snowball into this partnership that we now have. So since 2016, we've just been moving and grooving. We do primarily wedding photography is what we're known for. But what's so great about that is we're able to get creative in different ways. So we're able to partner with great folks like you guys and do lifestyle and corporate and family and all sorts of stuff. So it's been great to delve into different parts of photography as well.
Well, I'm excited to talk about all this because, we had this really great conversation with Julie Hoyle yesterday, who's near and dear to my heart, and really talking about taking action on your insight. And I think, all 3 of us ladies here have all done the hard work and left all of that behind to do what we love. And, it isn't easy. But it is easy to say yes to what comes from spirit. And I think that is part of what I want to talk about today and what I want to hear about how you transition. Because one of the things that I love about your photography, very specifically with the photography piece, is you both are spiritual women, and it's obvious in the photos. I mean, the ability to there's a reason I had you do my photos, right? Like there's a light and there's an energy, there's a Shakti inside those photos, which is so important for so many of us who are spiritual entrepreneurs. And we want to show that part of ourselves and the energy of ourselves. So it's just so great to have you here. And I think I do want to dive in, when was it that you were like, hey, I want to completely pivot and do something different with my life? And how did that relate to where you're at spiritually, and what gave you the ability to take action? That's like 5 questions in once, but
yeah. I'll start. So for me, it was 2010 and I was working in finance, and I've always I went to college for public relations and advertising. And so I was kind of always in that journalism creative mindset. But then I got out of college and kind of went through the time of being like, okay, well, now I need to get a job, and this is kind of what the corporate world looks like, and kind of followed that. And then in 2010, I hated what I was doing. Like I said, I was working in finance, and I was just trying to look for things that my heart was drawn to that could actually be a job. I came from a family of small business owners and entrepreneurs, and so their minds are all kind of out of the corporate world too. And so I met these wedding photographers, and they were kind of looking for help. And I honestly had never really picked up a camera. I had done stuff with my grandfather as a kid, and my mom did photos and that kind of stuff, but I never imagined it could actually be a career. And so then I just met these wedding photographers, and they were kind of looking for, and they were kind of looking for another person, because their business had grown so much. And I was just like, what do I have to lose? If I go with this and it doesn't work out, then I go back into the corporate world and I have my regular job that I can find or go do whatever I want. And if it works out, then it's just going to explode. And that's kind of what happened. So the very first wedding I shot was up at Devil's Thumb Ranch in Winter Park. And that wedding today is still the marketing material that they use up there. So just from that second on, it was just kind of like, oh, this works. And then it just kept working, and then it kept growing, and then I kept booking more, and then it just kept expanding. And then it got to the point kind of where I was at the point where I was turning enough business away that I needed help. And then Vanessa was kind of in the same place that I was 10 years ago, 7 years ago at that point. So that's kind of my part of it.
For me, it was interesting because looking back at everything, when you're in it, it always seems a little bit more chaotic, right? Like everything is so close up to your face, and it's like I know that I need to make movements. I don't know exactly what those movements are, how to get there, or how to do it, but trusting that voice. And I would say, I got into business marketing and events, which led to a lot of the success that I had within photography, is just dealing with clients and kind of understanding what people's visions were, and really hearing the client. And then, of course, managing expectations and kind of like the customer service part of things in the past. But looking back on it now, I always like to say you're exactly where you are, or you are exactly where you need to be. And so trusting the process of the 10 years that I worked prior to this really led up to the moment for it to make sense. Because Casey and I talk about this for so long. I mean, we've known each other for 10 years. And if we had this idea 10 years ago, it just wouldn't have added up. Like the steps that needed to be taken to get to the successful part and the meat of everything when we're now in our 30s, it just wouldn't have lined up that way. So with me, I really take in the experience that I was able to have and learn from to get me to the point of success now of this journey. And then it just got to that point right around that time in 2016, we were actually having like a glass of Chardonnay. And I was just like, I just feel like there's something more, and I don't know what it is. I feel like I do have a creative piece of me. I don't know how to tap into it. But I'm yearning for more, and I don't know how to get there. And so the conversation, that's kind of where the seed was planted. And she was like, come second shoot with me, see if that might be a creative outlet that you're interested in. And then from there, it snowballed. And then from 2016, of course, you have to kind of get the idea of letting go of your security. So I, for 10 years, had the 9 to 5, every 2-week paycheck, my insurance, everything, it was just handled and I didn't even have to think about it. So then when you start to think about, okay, this is completely different. And you just have to jump and build your wings on the way down and trust the process a little bit. Knowing that the due diligence and the work has been done in the back end of things. And then now being able to move forward and trusting the process, trusting yourself and honoring exactly where you're supposed to be. And that's where I was able to like let go a little bit. And then from there, I mean, what we put out was exactly what we brought back in, which was it was just all hands on deck and leading with our hearts in passion and like doing the work on the back end, but trusting the process as we step forward. So it was a pretty cool, very scary process. But as far as the inner voice, it's interesting and interesting as a spiritual person to be able to say, being able to compartmentalize the two things that are going on. So your heart's pulling you one way, but the fear might be pulling you back a little bit. So to be able to compartmentalize which is which and what's going to overcome and allow you to step forward in that manner is the scary part, but it's the most fulfilling part too.
I totally agree. And I think what's interesting is both of you didn't really have this experience going into it. And so how did you push through that? Because there's so many people listening. I know all of you guys in the community who have these ideas and you want to like go do this thing. And you're like, well, I don't even know how to do it. I certainly didn't know how to be on a YouTube show before I did it. So, how did you guys push through that moment of, okay, I'm going to go do photography without any background, any experience? Like, how did you face that fear? Truly.
Definitely. For me, it's probably kind of similar to you and starting Buddhist Biohacker and a YouTube channel. You don't have any experience necessary with the YouTube channel part. And then you're like, something in your heart is just telling you, go for it. And a lot of times, like with Vanessa said, your fear kind of pulls you back. But with that being said, like if you just you feel something like warm in your chest and you feel like something could be right out of it. So for me, every decision I've made in my life that has been an amazing decision has been kind of one of those moments where it's like, I feel like I just need to try it and I'm going to ignore the fears, ignore the small voices inside of my head and just kind of jump in. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And there will be some sort of a fallback, whether I get a job at a different place or do something different with my life, but just kind of like following that, like yearning for it and having faith in it. And so that's kind of with 2-1, I just kind of jumped completely into it. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. With me, it's actually goes a little bit against the grain of who I am as just a little bit of a type A personality. So I like to know my steps. I like to have a process to things. I like to have a plan B. And so it was actually a very good lesson for me to understand that, yes, the due diligence needs to be in play. The hard work needs to be in play. But knowing that whatever follows beyond that, it's the controlling the controllables and letting the uncontrollables go. And that's a very hard lesson for me. And I go through that every single day. And there's even things, it's the comfortability with being uncomfortable. And I learned that within the last 4 years that's okay. And if you feel that uncomfortability, it means that you're pushing and you're driving yourself and you're motivated to. And then the things that like at one time, my first wedding that I did, that made me so uncomfortable and I was just wanted to throw up the whole time. Now those things aren't as big anymore. So you keep pushing the next thing that you do that you would never imagine yourself doing 10 years ago. Conquered that. Let's keep moving. And once you find that momentum and that snowball effect, the confidence kind of comes along with it, the trusting the universe, trusting your voice, trusting all of those different things all start to just kind of click a little bit more instead of looking at things as A, as B, as C, as it's the whole picture that you're looking at. And that takes some time. I think, and again, like I said, I'm still learning it, but I think the difference of identifying A and B is a good trick and just trusting yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and it's interesting with her saying that is I'm not quite as A type. And so I kind of thrive off of kind of flying by the seat of my pants and trusting the universe and trusting how I feel and that kind of stuff. So it's really been great to have her kind of bring me back down to earth instead of being like, oh yeah, we'll do this and this. And for me, for forever, it's kind of work just trusting the universe, but it's also so important, especially when working with more than one person, to have some of the processes in place and learn that as we go too. So
we're very yin and yang.
We are yin and yang. But we're also very similar.
I like it. I get it because I was type A, I think, in my 20s, but I'm definitely not anymore. And my niece is my right hand, and she is very, so it's good because she keeps me in check. So you do kind of need to have that. And you know, the thing about the unknown, right? Like with this global event, I like to call it, that's gone on this year and continues to go on, we're really in the unknown. And I think I've said it like 1,000 times, but you know, we're stepping into the age of Aquarius, and the age of Aquarius, the divine feminine, like that's where she lives. She lives in that unknown place. And so there's a real challenge right now for everyone in the community and in the global collective to be in that unknown. Like, what are some of the things you guys have done this year to manage through the unknown? Because I assume, like, with everything that's happened, you guys have had a lot of weddings that have changed and curveballs thrown your way. And so I'm just wondering, like, what does that look like for you this year? How have you guys managed, like, all of a sudden everything's different from what it was before?
Oh, yeah. You know, I think when March hit, I remember saying, if our weddings get affected in April, I'm going to be so upset. If our weddings get affected in June, I'm going to be so upset. If our weddings in September. And so the first wedding, like I have been, I guess, the most A-type about making sure that I'm always at the wedding on time. I'm like, I will never miss a wedding unless I'm like in the hospital type of thing. Like, I am so neurotic about it. And so for that first wedding, when it canceled, I was just like completely thrown by it and so upset. And then it just kept happening. And then with both of us, I mean, probably about 75% of our weddings this year have either been canceled or pushed back to next year. And so as time went on, I think I went through like a dark phase where I was very angry and very unsure of everything. I think we all were. And then I kind of, as it kept happening, I started just being like, the theme of the year is flexibility. Like we're learning how to be flexible and just kind of go with the flow and like trust that on the opposite end, like our business is going to be fine. We're going to do fine. And we're really lucky in our industry, like where as photographers, where we can pivot and we can do other things. So family photos for us have been huge this year. Sorry for that background. Family photos have been huge for us this year. And so we've really capitalized on that. And then now I think that it's kind of starting to be a little bit normal that this keeps with COVID and weddings and life as we know it now. So now people aren't as freaked out about canceling or having a smaller wedding and 50 people instead of 200 or whatever it is. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think, you know, in the beginning we were teeing ourselves up, like Casey said, like if this happens, then we don't know or whatever it is. So when those things happen, you're able to kind of move and shift, know that you need to refocus and rebalance that energy of like where we can shift. And it also helps us get a little bit more creative within our business. So the things that we would never think about implementing within, you know, marketing or different kinds of mini shoots or whatever it is, it pushes you as people in business to look at things in a more creative manner to make things work. And so, yeah, I think you got it when it was just, you have to, the uncontrollables, you have to just be okay with. And then once that happens, shift and keep the positivity, and it will work out. Obviously, this is not something that any of us, it is so unprecedented and something that, you know, I wouldn't wish for next year at all.
Yeah.
But you just shift and figure it out. Yes.
Yeah.
Cross your fingers.
Totally. When it goes into kind of everything, I think it's for me been a big lesson in everything in life. Like this year, you can only control so much in your life, and it's really important to control things and be organized and all of that. But also, like, things happen in the world that like we just have to throw our hands up and just pray that we come out on the other end and we come out better and we better ourselves during that process. Even though like you really, my husband says this, but really the biggest time for growth is during adversity. And for me this last year, I think I've grown the most because I've had some of the most adversity I've had to go through. So.
And bringing someone on. So she's had this, her baby for 10 or 11 years. And we really learned as partners that, we usually have a very like easygoing communication. Everything's good. We're just kind of like, we're working, our heads are down. We know what needs to be done. And when something presented itself that we had no idea how to handle it or how to approach it, we really had to focus on our communication because everything has been pretty peachy thus far for the last 4 years. And so this was the first time as a partnership that we really had to like get down and dirty and say, hey, like we need to make sure we are 100% on the same page because everything around us is unknown. Like we need to be solid. Our foundation needs to be solid.
For sure. Yeah. And we had to refocus on it. And especially during like the lockdown time and all of that, we kind of just were living in our own little bubbles, even though we're family and we talk every day, we still are just kind of in our bubble. So it was really good for us to refocus and get back on the same page with everything.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a wild ride. I mean, I think, and I bet you two feel this way too. Like, I think we all knew we were going to do this in this lifetime. Like we were all going to be here for this. But at the same time, it's like, really, is this what I wanted to be a part of? Yeah. Oh my gosh. I want to invite everybody who's in the live right now. If you guys have questions, if you want to share your own stories of how you've pushed through or met adversity or handled ambiguity, I'd love to hear from everybody for sure. And I'd like to talk more about listening to our inner voice, because I think being in a quarantine situation is really like the opportunity to listen to yourself more than we ever have had, and really having to. So what has come up for you with your own inner voice this year? How has that played into the decisions that you've made with your creative space, and also your life?
Yeah, I would say, I think it was easy and even being, someone who is spiritual, who likes to settle into thoughts and that kind of thing, it was really easy for me to create white noise around me and just try to be busy. And my standard day is pretty busy, but I always have that time where I settle down and I'm with my thoughts and I kind of take it down a notch and shift gears. And I found that I didn't want to do that. And so I didn't even actually realize that I was doing that. It was just kind of busy bee mentality and talking about minutia, the things that I don't typically do. And so eventually, like I just kind of felt like irritable, and I like just something was like an underlying irritability for me all the time. And so finally it got to the point, and it's just the universe just keeps knocking on your door until you listen. And so it was soft knock, and then a little bit harder, and then a little bit harder, and communication kind of started to, and it was kind of like, all right, what do I need to be doing? Because something needs to shift here. And the reason was I didn't want to, a lot of the things that I was creating white noise around were the fears that I had with business and with finances and whatever it was moving forward. And so I think that once you kind of hunker down and you look at those things in a direct way, a little bit of the bigness or the power of the issue or the power of the fear kind of diminishes a little bit, because you identify it and you decide what you want to do with it from there. And so that was something that crossed over into my personal life as well as my professional life. And then, the best thing that you could do is, number one, sit with yourself, sort through all of that stuff, try to compartmentalize it. I write all of that stuff down so I could see it. And then the second thing that I really need is the communication with those around me. Because, and what I found was the more that I would talk to other people about this, I wasn't the only one. And that always made me feel really good of being like, I don't have to tackle this thing by myself. Like everyone's kind of going through this, and it's that same kind of just mental space that everyone's trying to sort through. Everyday stuff is hard enough. And then you do the everyday stuff plus the unknowns, plus, just trying to get through it. So that's kind of how it affected me. But, and I still, even to this point, there's days that I struggle with. And I think the biggest thing is like, that's okay. That's okay to have those days of doubt or nervousness or anxiety or whatever it is. But what are you going to do with that moving forward? You know?
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. Yeah. I'm going to piggyback on everything Vanessa said. I completely agree with all of that 100%. And for me, it was a little bit different. I spent most of the time alone. My husband was military and was gone for pretty much, he just got home about 2 weeks ago and was gone for quite a while. And so for me, I spent time with my doggies and myself. And so I just really tried to work on self-growth and personal growth. And I will say I kind of did put the business on hold a little bit. And I kind of, because this is the first time in a decade that I haven't been working my buns off shooting weddings every weekend and editing and on and on and on. So I was definitely went through a phase where I was pretty depressed, I think, and just felt really alone.
Well,
and
you
then
were alone.
I was alone with my dog who saved me.
Yeah.
I fostered dogs, which was the best. But yeah, so then I kind of picked myself up a little bit because only I can be the one that really makes myself happy and grow. And I started reading books and going through how I could be better and trying to work on things that I need to work on. Like I have a hard time sometimes with communication and like letting my inner voice out and I guess opening my throat chakra. And so I really have been trying to work on that. And then with that, now that my husband's back and we're able to be together again, and it's not like a weird thing and some work's come back. I think that it's really helped me grow into us being a partnership and all of that too. But I definitely had a tough time.
Yeah.
Well, and I love that you guys are sharing that because I think one of the things that we focus on here on the show is to not deny our humanity, like no matter where you're at spiritually, no matter where you're at in your business and your life, we're still human. And so I love what you guys are sharing. And I think the distractions are huge. I think we've all figured out like there were many, many ways we were distracting ourselves. I mean, I noticed myself, like just not taking kids to and from school or to and from soccer practice and all of that. When you removed all of that, it was like, wow, I have a lot of space here. What am I going to do with this space? And like you guys, like I had some tough times too. And I, launched the show and One Heart, One Earth and all these things in April. And part of that was me realizing, you know what, like I've basically been ignoring my inner voice and I had all these excuses. Well, I don't have time because of this, or I don't have time because of that. And what I've learned is I actually had time all along. And so being able to share that it's been tough and looking at what's distracting us and what that's all about is really important because I think for everybody watching and for myself, like we're all human beings, and this hasn't been an easy time at all. How are you guys going to honor your inner voice coming out of this time? I don't have a word for it anymore. I don't know what to say about it, but going into the new year, we're going into fourth quarter here. Like, hope we'll get through this wild election nonsense and then we'll come out of it. So how are you going to honor your inner voice? What's changed for you now? What steps are you going to take?
That's a great question. I would say a big thing for me is to practice gratitude and just slowing down. As I definitely can go to this. My brain can be in 100 different spots at one time and I can have a very hard time paying attention, but this has kind of pushed me to slow down, to reground myself and to just like, remember I don't need to rush through everything and just be grateful for the people in my life, my health, my home, like every single thing, because a lot of people don't have that. And I think it's just like such a big reset and reminder that I think the universe maybe threw out that everyone needs to practice and think of, I think personally. But.
Yeah. I think that my biggest thing is starting now. I think what I do, and especially with things coming up with the election, we're waiting for vaccines. We're waiting for COVID we're waiting for all of these different things. And something that I'm very good at is saying, okay, things will be better after this season because I'll slow down a little bit. Things will be better after the election. Things will be better once the holidays are over. There's always that next event that you feel like you need to get through to be better. And one thing with all of this is to start now. For me, it's saying, okay, how can I be the best version of myself with exactly what's going on right now, or on election day, or whatever it is, and continue with that mindset of communication and grounding and meditation and gratitude, and starting that in the present moment, because I am very good at looking ahead and trying to plan ahead. That's where that like type A personality starts creeping in again. And that's what's great about Casey is I'll be able to see, what's here and now, and be a little bit more present in everything that I do.
I love
it. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say something else is I'm trying really hard not to focus on all the news stories and everything that's coming my way. Because I definitely, during the quarantine time, I went down a rabbit hole on the news stories. And I think part of that also made me even more negative and more distrusting in people. And I became very irritable and angry with everything too. So I think just kind of like taking bits and pieces and like finding what like I believe and we believe, whoever, so that kind of going with it too. Totally.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've done the same thing. My husband's done a lot of research in that world, and there gets to be a point where you're like, oh man, I just can't hear anymore or take anymore. Yeah. And it does fuel that. And I think, we spoke with Julie yesterday, and she had a great viewpoint on it that I just think is brilliant, which is, at the end of the day, the anger about the manipulation and the lack of truth and all of those things really comes down to what we've experienced as individuals and our own experiences of manipulation and lack of truth and being taken advantage of. And so I think that a lot of the rage in us is actually something we need to look at about our own life experience, because it's happening on a collective level right now. And this is the big release of all of that, which is good. And, I want to share too that the collective that I channel, the collective said, whether it's a conspiracy theory or a truth or a, mainstream media truth, they're all narratives. They're all narratives, they're all stories. And they've encouraged all of us this year to really look at this split between the two, because the truth is there in between the two, because there's truth and false in all of it, right? And so it is a challenge, because, when you get sucked into it, it's hard to pull out. So I'm with you on that, because, as a psychic too, like, part of what I do is channel information about things like that, and having to look at it and what's true and what's false and what's going to happen next. And it's an exhausting journey. I feel like I want it to let's just go to the fifth dimension and move on from this wildness, I swear. But anyways, I'm curious. I want to talk a little bit about the creative space, because photography is very creative. And you guys are very talented. And if you guys go to their Instagram, it's in the show notes. It's going across the screen right now. You'll see how talented you guys are. But you both jumped into this without really knowing a lot about it, I assume. I mean, that's what it sounds like. So I'm just curious, what was your creative process look like, and how did you learn? Because I'm sure there's folks listening who are like, oh, I want to go do something like that. And they're like, but I don't even know where to begin. So what did that look like for you guys?
I would say, I always felt like I had a creative side to me. I can't draw, I can't paint, I can't do any of that, but I feel like I've always had a certain eye for human emotion, I would say. So whether that was, a homeless person on the side of the road it's just like, there's different things that you find beauty in. And I was never sure like why I had that or how to tap into that. I was very blessed because she was able to show me the technicalities of the camera and the process of photo shoots and that kind of thing. But what was able to kind of, once I got comfortable in that space, what was able to kind of come up and bubble up for me was seeing people's vision. So, and that's the biggest thing I think we hear with photography is they kind of have their space. They have, the lines that they follow, and that's the product you're going to get. And I think with 2-1 photography and what we do, we really capitalize off of the in-between moments and what is happening in that moment with whoever you're working with. So whether it's a bride or whether it's a space like the shoot that we did with everyone, I kind of wanted to hear a little bit about what each person's vision was, what they do, what they'd like it to look like, and all sorts of stuff. So then I can tap into and collaborate with someone else instead of just having my set way of doing things. Each shoot turns out so different because you allow yourself to encapsulate what they're feeling and their emotion and what they want the vision to be. And that's what's important is what they want.
Yeah, that's really good. So I feel like with art, there's no wrong way to do art. It doesn't matter if my style could be taking photos of the leaves or taking photos of people or taking like these beautiful portraits of whatever it is. There's absolutely no wrong way to do it. And so I think, learning the technicalities of the camera was actually probably for me one of the hardest things, and going on, like, I feel creative with people and like finding the emotion in people. And like for us, I think something that 2-1 Photography and both Vanessa and I both really strive at, and that's why we're so great together, is wanting to know people's stories and being able to like have the gift of telling people's stories in photographs. Being a part of a wedding is kind of being in like their inner circle for the day and capturing those moments of like the bride with like her grandma or obviously her husband, and these like really, really special times that it just kind of brings you back to like what's really important in your life and life in general. And to me, that's being creative, because I can't draw. I can't do a lot of that artistic stuff, but for photography and capturing that emotion out of people, that's what drives us.
And I think the connection with that person, because we've heard a lot of stories about feeling a little bit rigid, and it's very hard to, I don't know if everyone's tried this, but it's very hard for a photographer to say, hey, act natural. I'm going to have this camera in your face, but act as natural as you can.
And now make out.
Yeah. No, kiss your bride. So it's one of those things where what great challenges that present to me are the people who are like, I've never taken a good photo in my life. I've never liked a photo that was taken of me. And then the ability to kind of allow their guard to let down, connect with them, have them feel comfortable with you, and like have that whole process of the shoot. It's not just about the photo that's taken, it's their comfortability and their trust and their vulnerability that they allow. And then that's what really shines through. And that's what you see in our photos is the vulnerability within it.
Yeah. And them feeling comfortable and happy. And
I love it, because that's also, to me, part of the intuitive and empathic piece of both of you is, being able to just connect with somebody. I mean, that is the difference between a rigid photo or a not rigid photo, but it's also the difference between how you're just connecting with that human experience and how you're engaging and showing the human experience. And having gone through that experience with you, Vanessa, like it is awkward to be like, oh, okay, I guess I'm going to laugh or I'm going to do this thing and I don't really know what I'm doing. And it's amazing to me what you were able to capture. And thank you, Vicki. Vicki's so sweet. She just said, love your hearts for what you do. And love you, Vicki, always. And so, let's talk about that fear of failure, because you both just brought that up, not being afraid to fail. And it's really funny. I mean, the themes, man, because yesterday, that's exactly what we talked about on the show yesterday, too, is just who cares if we look stupid? Who cares if, I've looked poorly and I've had some crazy things happen on live shows. I mean, it just is what it is. I have a live I did where my stepson's walking behind me in the kitchen to get cereal. I mean, it is what it is, so we can't be afraid to fail because it's part of doing our work. And so I want to talk more about that. And what are you guys' thoughts, just deeper thoughts about, stepping into something and not, because that does hold a lot of folks back from taking action. Because the time is now to take action on whatever it is your inner voice is telling you. And most everyone isn't doing it because they're scared to fail.
Yeah, totally. So there's actually a wedding industry podcast that I listen to that it's called Mistakes Make Magic. And I think that really rings true, especially with anyone going into business for whatever it is, like, and kind of going back to the adversity brings growth is like, you can't be too hard on yourself if you mess up. For me, I'm a perfectionist in this job, and it probably can drive her nuts sometimes, but like, I'm very perfectionist with it. And I sometimes need to bring myself down and remember that if there is something that takes a left turn when I think it's going to take a right turn, like learn from that and like, it'll be okay. And then also with with doing weddings and the technicality of it, like I honestly do not let negative thoughts come into my mind about because people will always be like, well, what happens if you miss this shot, or what happens if this happens to your camera? And I'm like, I just say, like, I do not let that even come into my mind, because then I'll create it, I feel like, so it doesn't even come into my brainwave at all. I can't allow it to. And because of that, I think it really helps me personally. So
yeah, I would say the inner voice, the inner chatter that we have, and I think it comes from the protection mode. You're trying to protect yourself from what could possibly happen, but by saying, well, you're just always chattering within, and it turns into negativity, even though you're trying to prepare. So I think one of those things is like prepare what you can, and do the back end work. But after that, let the other stuff go. And then our voices inside are so loud anyway, just us, to be a little bit kinder to yourself, to know that to trust yourself, to find that confidence, which isn't easy when you're like, there's a million people that know way more about this than me. Why would they hire me? Why would they trust their photos to something that I do? And to be able to try to identify that confidence and to be able to move forward. There's a book that I read, and this quote has always stuck with me. But especially in the world of social media and all the things that we're doing, we naturally compare ourselves to the other person of where I need to be, what level, what platform do I need to be on? In the quote is, don't you dare compare your beginning to someone else's middle. So knowing that the things that they were able to go through and the things that they had to fight for and crawl up the mountain, you have no idea what that looked like in the beginning stages of it. So honor the process, honor the exact moment that you're at, because you're learning things, you're growing. And like I said before, where you are now is exactly where you're supposed to be. So allow that to happen, and allow yourself to be the beginner. Allow yourself to look at other people and learn from them, not compare, but learn the things that they have to say. The great thing about social media is that everyone's done this before. So now you have using it as more of like tools of saying, okay, this is how I do this, instead of having to recreate the wheel. Use it in that manner, but don't ever compare yourself. And it's again, it's an everyday struggle not to do that when you see these great photographers that seem like they're crazy busy and they're doing all these different things. You're always like, hey, what can I be doing better? But do that for yourself, not for the comparison.
Yeah. And to kind of piggyback off just the inner chatter and all of that, a book I read during quarantine, which I'm sure a lot of you have read, is The Untethered Soul. And just kind of like, the book, if you haven't read it, is a lot about like inner chatter, and like whatever happens in your life, like you're kind of strong enough and mentally you can shut down that chatter, that you can like push it out and you don't have to deal with it. And so that, and then another quote, copy her too, from that book is, everything is okay when you decide it's going to be okay. And I think just kind of with everything in life right now, I think that really rings true with all that stuff.
Totally.
It's so true. I mean, the discontent is always just what's inside of us. And we have to decide that we're happy with how things are right now. How do you brought up comparison. It reminds me, I've got to find it now, but because I want to share it. But I had this tarot deck, which I've talked about so many times in the last 3 weeks. I might have to go buy it again. I gave a bunch of my tarot cards away. But Osho Zen Tarot as awesome cards, and he has a card about comparison. Comparing, you can't compare a bamboo to a piece of wood or whatever. I'm going to find it here while we're talking, but it's so beautiful. And so so there's this whole thing when you're your own businesswoman, right? Like the comparison, just like you're saying, you're like, oh, look at that person's Instagram, or, oh man, look at their website, or, oh, she's charging this and I'm not. Like you question your value, you start to question all sorts of things. But it's also a really good way to continue to improve what you're doing, right? And to get ideas and to share off of each other. And I think that conscious collaboration. I'm actually working on a project right now, and probably we'll talk to you guys about it later, but I'm working on this concept of conscious collaboration and what that really looks like, you know, because we're going into a new way of living and a new reality, essentially. And so how have you guys taken that comparison mindset and really taken it to push yourself to the next level? And how are you right now looking at how to improve the way that you're marketing, the way that you're sharing the content of your business and those kinds of things? Because it's a real thing that we have to manage as entrepreneurs.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I think everything in the wedding industry, photography, as well as every industry, is constantly changing. The technology is always changing. The styles are always changing. What's popular this year may not be popular next year. And so for us, I think that honestly, it's kind of about, you go ahead. I just got spaced it. Like a text message came through my thing. You go ahead.
I would say, I think shifting the preset of your mind of the comparison is one for me. And this goes just like female to female. I think it's very easy for us. It's kind of like how a lot of the social media started of that comparison and maybe more negativity or that kind of thing. And what has always helped me, especially getting into this space a little bit more, is instead of saying, well, you know, they're doing this, they're doing that, is to more have the attitude of uplifting that person, especially the females in the same industry or space that I am, to say, gosh, that's like, what a badass. She's, you know, she's killing it in this, and she's learning how to do this or whatever it is. And like I said before, sometimes it's easier for me not to look at that stuff because of the feelings that kind of come up. And again, those feelings come up because of my own insecurities. So that's something you need to look at. So now shifting that into like a more uplifting avenue is now I'm able to look at that as, like you were saying, more of a collaboration and ideas and things to bounce off of and that kind of thing. So that's kind of where that space. Did you find your train of thought?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I mean, I do think that it's very easy to compare, and lately with us saying that we're refocusing and all of that, we're kind of trying to take the business to like another level. Like we've kind of hit a ceiling with where we're at, and now we're trying to like punch through it and go higher. So it is definitely easy to compare. And so with that, something we've been trying to kind of do is like recenter and like relearn or kind of go over everything like with the cameras again and like the different styles and learn different types of photography. And that will help us grow. And also like something that another photographer, like an example is like astrophotography and like the long exposure shots. Like I love that stuff, but I'm not very good at it. And I really want to learn how to get better at it. So by looking at other photographers and other people, I'm trying to like kind of learn that instead of compare like, oh, I suck because she knows how to do it and I don't know how to do it. So just trying to kind of grow from that. And then with the marketing piece, trying to just kind of like go with the times of everything right now, but then also create our own brand and our own idea of what it should look like.
Yeah, just like reeling it in, like creating the boundaries of saying, okay, these are tools for us. We see that, we understand it's there, but now let's hone in. Let's write some things down of next challenges that we want for our company, us as individuals. What does that platform look like? Still look at that stuff, but come back here because this is our ground. This is where we need to focus. Not allow that to like spark creativity and spark the ideas that we want to work on, but then write it down and create that boundary is I think that a big thing that we have to remind ourselves to do every day.
Yeah, completely. And yeah, just not compare to every person's Instagram page and like, we're not doing this, but they're doing this. Like we don't know their beginning, their middle, or where they're at right now, you know? So just really trying to recenter with that.
I love it because, yeah, there's something about, I even realized this myself is like I was trying to be everybody's psychic, for example. And this beautiful gift of 2020 has been, no, I'm going to be me. Just that's it. You either want to talk to me or you don't. You either like me or you don't. You either want to be in my brand or you don't. It doesn't really matter. And I think, that authenticity goes back to what both of you were talking about. And Carrie shared, hi, Carrie. She said, that is profound. She said, comparing your insides to others' outside. She said, thank you. She said, your work is breathtaking. So thank you, Carrie, for sharing that. I also found this card. So I got to read this card because it's so good. It's so good. Oh my gosh. Who doesn't love Osho? Totally controversial, I know. Totally crazy. Watch the documentary. It's really wild, but I don't care. He still has amazing things he's written. So this is what he talks about. He says, whoever told you that the bamboo is more beautiful than the oak, or the oak more valuable than the bamboo? Do you think the oak wishes it had a hollow trunk like this bamboo? Does the bamboo feel jealous of the oak because it is bigger and it leaves change color in the fall? The very idea of the two trees comparing themselves to each other seems ridiculous, but we humans seem to find this habit very hard to break. Let's face it, there is always going to be someone more beautiful, more talented, stronger, more intelligent, or apparently happier than you are. And conversely, there will always be those who are less than you in all these ways. The way to find out who you are is not by comparing yourself with others, but by looking to see whether you are fulfilling your own potential in the best way you know how. Comparison brings inferiority and superiority. When you don't compare, all inferiority and superiority disappear. Then you are simply that. A small bush or a big tree, it doesn't matter. You are yourself and you are needed. Just look around. All is needed and everything fits together. It is an organic unity. No one is higher and no one is lower. No one superior, no one inferior. Everyone is incomparably unique.
Beautiful. That is amazing.
That's what we were trying to say.
Yeah. It's definitely a word.
The Osho deck, this is pretty funny. I only used it. It's like a shadow work deck. I mean, it's very like direct, like deal with your shit, pardon my language. And so I used it for so many years. I like have it memorized. It's really weird. So like these cards like pop into my head and I don't even have the deck anymore. So thank God for Google, I guess. But yeah, it's so beautiful because it's so true. Like we're all our own unique individual and no one's ever going to be you and you're never going to be me. And that's the whole point. So I wanted to share that because it's so beautiful. I just love it. I'm going to have to order this deck. Dang it. I don't really want to buy any. I've really nailed it down to like 3 card decks, but I've had so many card readers and different people on that now I like want to order decks. It's a problem.
Shopping soon.
Yeah. I'm like, I need to get on Amazon and I don't want to give them any money. Oh my gosh. So, oh my gosh. Oh, and Carrie says God bumps. Thank you, Carrie. Carrie and Vicky. I just love them so much. And everybody, again, who's listening, you can ask any questions that you have too. And I think, we've talked about so many great things and time flies in here. It's almost been an hour already. And I'd really love to give you guys some space to share like how folks can connect with you, what is accessible to them. Because obviously, if they're not in Colorado, but I think you guys travel too. So, what do you want to share about what's going on now and what's available to people and how they can connect with you?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess first, the best way to connect with us is through our website, and both of our contact info is on there. And it's just, I believe it's running through right now, 2nphotography.com, all spelled out. And then on the website, you can see more of our work and hear a little bit more about us. And there's blogs on there. And then our Instagram, which is also running through. And then we each have our own Instagrams. Vanessa's is Vanessa, Vanessa, 2N Photography, and mine's Casey, Casey, 2N Photography. And then we have Facebook, and like I said, our contact number and all of that is on the website. And so, our goal is just as photographers is just to capture the client's story, and whether that's a wedding or their family or a corporate event or their senior photos, just kind of capture that and like where they're at in life right now and the essence of all of that. And that is truly a gift that we get to give to people and an honor. So
yeah. And we do travel. So friends in New Zealand, it's on my bucket list.
Yeah, we will be here in a second. Just call us.
Yeah, seriously, we have folks, a lot of folks that watch the show in New Zealand. So howdy to all of you out there. I have quite a few clients there too in the UK. And then we also have a pretty big group in Brazil as well. So hi to everybody out there in Brazil too. So
yeah, never need a photographer.
Yes, yes. Well, and I will just do a shout out too. Like, obviously, you guys, Vanessa did all of our photography for Buddhist Biohacker here locally, and hopefully, we'll get all of the Buddhist Biohacker feature folks together next year and travel to visit each other and do more photos with everybody. And so you guys can see their work on there as well. And 2 Photography is a partner with us. So we have them up on the partners page at lisamgunshore.com. They're also on the referral network on our spiritualentrpreneurship.net, which we have some really juicy stuff coming for 2021 for spiritual entrepreneurship. So hang tight, because I'm taking it to the next level with some conscious collaboration. We're going to start doing business outside of the programs in the system, and I think it's going to be super good. So I'm excited about that. So all of you guys' information is up there as well, so you guys can check that out there. And any parting words of wisdom? You guys have any parting words?
Oh boy. Yeah. I would just say this year has been a really interesting and hard year, I think, for everyone. And kind of what I was saying earlier is all of us have had to learn to adapt and grow, and business and life, children, marriage, school. I mean, most people's kids are in and out of school. It depends on the week, what's happening. So just kind of learning how to be present, staying in the moment with like your families, and like kind of resetting with all of that. And then just flexibility for me, just going with the flow of it. And if something happens that we didn't imagine happen, I mean, it's been happening monthly, just like know it's going to be okay, and just allow the process to take place, even though it's not comfortable.
I would say, just with all of this going on, just be kind to yourself, be kind to others, honor your heart, honor your process, honor your mind. And that's, sometimes that's the best we can do with what we've got. So that's it.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I love having you guys on here. You're both truly diamond beauties in the Buddhist Biohacker book. And, for everybody listening, like, again, check in with their work. At least go follow them on Instagram and see what's up, because I love all the pictures. I actually really love them because you can see so much of the story just inside one photo when you see someone with their grandchild or something. It's so great. So love that. And for everybody watching, our November Awakening event is open for registration. Go to oneheartoneearth.net. We have a lovely little video trailer, since I seem to love making movies. So that's on there, and it's free to register. All you do is throw your email on that homepage. We have our schedule up. We have 30 pre-recorded presentations that will open on November 1st. And we have, no joke, 50 hours of live Q&A and conversation, and we're going to do some live readings. We're going to get the meeting of the mediums back together that week, and all of that great stuff. So go register. It's completely free. We are holding the vibration and the frequency during the United States election. So I think whether you're here in the US or you're outside of the country, I know all eyes are on what's happening next, because it will determine a lot of what happens across the globe as well. So do tune into that. So again, that's oneheartoneearth.net. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I keep forgetting to say that, so I'm going to say that today. And I just love all of you. Thank you, ladies, so much for being on. Truly, it's just been an honor.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for everything. We sure love you, and we love what you're doing.
Oh, I love it too. And thank you, everybody who's watching. Love to everybody. And we are back at 3 p.m. with Sean McNamara talking about his new book, Renegade Mystic. And that'll be really exciting as well. So I will see you guys in 3 hours. All right. Bye, guys.
Thank you, guys.